Morning, buddy. My question for you today is, are you still anxious? Our verse is 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. I know we've talked about anxiety before, but reality is, I'm sure you're still dealing with it. I know I do at times. We all do. Have you humbled yourself before God and acknowledged you don't have the answers? This is the first step in letting go of anxiety because he cares for us and is in control. We can trust that his plan is right and for our good. Tell him your cares and concerns, even though you're telling him nothing new. Let go of your own ideas and plans and listen for his direction in your life. Now, we will not have our regular Tuesday Facebook Live next week as I will be on vacation. If I have a chance, I will try to check in on Facebook, but self-service may not always be available, so I'm not sure exactly when that might happen. I will try. And we will be back the following Tuesday with another verse and a smoothie recipe. Now, today's recipe is almond muffins. And makes about a dozen, 12. And I am actually already have it in the oven so that you're not waiting around a half hour for me to do the entire prep and make sure that they're done. In order to actually see something, I did go ahead and prep it before the call. That's why we're starting a couple minutes late here. But let me go through the recipe and how to do it. You start by preheating the oven to 350. Put muffin liners in your muffin tin. That saves you a whole lot of cleaning hassle later on. I use unbleached parchment liners myself. And start by mixing the dry ingredients in a small bowl. And the dry ingredients are 2 cups of almond flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, non-aluminum. Make sure that you get the non-aluminum. You do not need to be ingesting more aluminum. Not good for your brain. 1/4 teaspoon of Celtic Sea Salt, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/8 teaspoon of Stevia that's powdered. And you mix all of that in your small bowl, and then you set that aside, and then you're going to mix your wet ingredients in a medium bowl. That is a 1/2 cup of extra virgin coconut oil, organic preferred, and 4 organic free-range eggs. The eggs are what holds everything together pretty much. So 1/3 cup of distilled water for additional moisture. And beat the eggs, get that all mixed together, and then you add your dry into it, beating it enough to get the lumps out of it. Usually with muffins, the issue is with overdoing it on the mixing process. So you want to get it mixed, but not overdo it. Obviously, you don't want chunks of dry left over or anything like that, but mix it enough to do what you need to do, but don't overdo it because it can cause the leavening to get odd. It's how you get tunnels, big pockets inside, which you may not care about that much because it doesn't affect the taste. But if you're actually in competition, they judge you on how many of those you have. So going back to my 4-H days here. So anyway, after you've got the wet, the dry, everything all mixed together, you add that, you take that, and you fill each of your muffin cups about 3/4 full. And then you're going to cook it for 10 to 15 minutes. And we still have a few minutes. I'm checking it after 10. You always want, excuse me, you always want to check it at the lowest possible time, especially if you know your oven tends to run a little hot. Check it. It's better to check it early than to get something overdone. And in order to properly check something that's a baked good, you're going to want to use toothpicks. So I have the same box of toothpicks that we've had for years because this is the only time practically I use them. But you want to be able to put one, and you're going to want to pick something closer to the center, not something on the outskirts, because usually the stuff on the outer edge cooks faster than what's in the center. That's especially true if you're dealing with a bread or a cake or something like that. Slightly less true in muffins, but I'd still pick one of the inner ones and then check the center. You want your toothpick to actually come out with nothing stuck to it. If it's not, then it's actually going to need to go a little bit longer. So we will be checking that in just another couple minutes. So I'm going to leave that sitting over here, ready to go. Also going to pull out my other mitt in preparation because I will need to pull out the rack so that I don't risk burning myself trying to get in there with the toothpick. But that is the rough idea of how to do this. This will make up quite a few. I'm planning on probably freezing half of these so that I'm not tempted to eat them all in a short amount of time. And it will also be something I can take with me on my trip next week. I'm actually going to, part of the time anyway, to the upper rim of the Grand Canyon, which is actually the highest elevation part in the park and the coolest part this time of year. And hopefully I can find a quiet spot that I can actually shoot a Facebook Live, but we will see how that works. And I hope to bring something to you from there, but we will see how that all works out in the long run. But that's one of the things you can do is you can make up things, and actually baked goods usually do pretty good freezing them. They will actually taste like they're fresher than if you let them sit for several days out. Though normally I would keep them in a refrigerator, not just out in the room, because they will, dry out, and they can dry out in the refrigerator too if you don't have them, somewhat enclosed to keep them from drying out too much in the process, particularly on the exterior. Obviously, on the interior is not going to. Okay, let's take a look at this after 10 minutes and see what it looks like. A little bit sticky, not much. So I'm actually going to let it go another minute before I take it out. It's pretty close, but I just want to make sure that it's done enough. And just check that, one more time to make sure. But obviously I will, once these are done, I will pull them out, leaving them in their papers, but let them cool off for a little bit, and then put them into the refrigerator or into the freezer if you're planning on saving them for a little longer. Like I am, I'll save some of them for later. And anytime, it's almost there. And we'll go ahead and take them out this time because it was pretty close, and so I'm not going to get too carried away with it. Turning off the oven immediately. So they're not super high. That's one of the things with working with non-grain is that sometimes they don't raise as much. Also, I don't find myself using baking soda real often, so I've actually had this a few years, so it may not be raising quite as much as it would with like a nice fresh batch. So anyway, that is how you make the almond muffins, and I will post the recipe here in the feed in just a moment, and I will also post this up on YouTube. And I will see you back for another recipe and another scripture verse the week after next. See you later.